Good morning, Broncos fans. I'm going to give this just a minute because I have an important announcement to make about next week's show, and I don't want anyone to miss it. We're going to bring and make sure all of the streams are in before the announcement is made. I'm your host, Thomas Hall, and this is Legends of Mile High. And next week, we will literally be bringing you a legend of Mile High. Ring of Famer Carl Mecklenburg will be appearing on the show live next week, so you don't want to miss it. Next Friday, 7 a.m. He's one of my favorite Broncos of all time, and he's absolute Broncos royalty. And we're going to dive into his career and really understand what it took to play all front seven positions and just how difficult it was to become the most versatile player in NFL history. So today we have a couple nuggets to share about the some of the NFL draftees this year for the Broncos and how they remind me of a couple of past Broncos. So stick with me till the end. I'm going to share the Mile High legend, and today I'll be describing the most miraculous event on the gridiron that nobody remembers. So before we jump in, let's just check the chat out. The DWI guys are in here early. Thank you very much. Appreciate your support. Appreciate you being here. Good afternoon, Thomas and Broncos Country. Thanks for joining in from London. I really appreciate this. EJ coming in. Good morning, Thomas and Broncos Country. Good morning to you. It is wonderful to have you on the chat and listening in. So thank you very much. And before I get started, I do want to say one thing. Give a little, shout out to Billy Thompson, who retired from the Broncos yesterday evening. He's been with the organization for 42 years as a player and in the administration. So kudos to him. And this may derail what I was going to talk about a little bit, but I just wanted to say I think that the Broncos have had some tremendous safeties over the years. I think they've been fortunate to have at least 10 really solid safeties that have played for them. Bill Thompson's one of them. He is definitely someone who I believe is being ignored for any Hall of Fame talk. He was an incredible player who was very opportunistic. 40 interceptions, 21 fumble recoveries, 7 defensive touchdowns over his career. Amazing player, part of the Orange Crush defense. And also he some of his records, so they weren't all-time records, but he was in second place for career return yardage all time, number 2, and he wasn't knocked off of that pedestal until 97, and his 4 fumble recoveries for a touchdown wasn't bested again until 98. So incredible player and a long run with the Broncos. So we appreciate that he was able to be a part of the Broncos organization for so long. Lawrence Rivera, what's up, my guys? Card came last night. Got to get loaded. Though much love. Go Broncos. Yeah, thank you, Lawrence, for checking into the chat. Really appreciate it. Again, if you weren't in early, Carl Mecklenburg next week on the show. So I wanted to talk a little bit today about 2 of the NFL rookies that the Broncos took in the draft today that sort of reminded me of a couple players that were one of them was kind of I would say a legend, but both of them are a little bit underrated, I would say. So first I'll start out with Montrell Washington out of Sanford. He reminds me a little bit of Glenn Milburn. And if you don't remember Glenn Milburn, he was a Broncos player from 93 to 95. He left to go to the Detroit Lions and then the Chicago Bears to finish out his career. A tremendous kick returner, known for punt returns and kick returns. One of the better ones that ever came down, and was really quite dynamic with the Broncos. He also came in to the league as a running back and slash wide receiver slash kick return specialist. And he was used pretty well back in the day, 93, 94. He caught quite a few balls out of the backfield for the Broncos, and he was able to do some rushing as well. And I think in 95, when they realized that TD was going to be an all-pro MVP type player, they let him go to Detroit. So they kind of missed him a little bit. You know, he caught 77 receptions in 94. And I think this is how Montrell Washington is really going to be used if it's a big if he wins the job as the kick returner. So it's pretty much his to lose. Now, if he comes into training camp and preseason has trouble holding onto the ball while making those tough punt receptions and kickoffs, that can hurt him. But if he can show that he can actually field the ball well, I think he's got a spot on the team. And I think he's going to be probably the fifth wide receiver, so to speak, but return specialist. And I think they're going to hopefully use him similarly to how they used Glenn Milburn in the past. They're both very similar players, about same height, same weight, similar speed in the 40 times, similar type of elusiveness in the open field. And I think that if the Broncos can scheme up some plays for him on the offense as the fifth receiver or sixth receiver, get him into space, he's going to be a pretty electric guy for the offense. Similarly to how the last coaching staff was hoping that Deontay Spencer would be. He just didn't quite put it all together. He was an okay return specialist. They tried to use him on offense a few times, but they didn't utilize him correctly. But I think Washington may very well do what Spencer was supposed to do in the offense and returning. Now, it's a big if. Rookies are, they're rookies for a reason. So who knows how much playing time he's going to get. But I do believe that his job to lose is the return specialist job. There's really nobody else on the roster right now that has what he has in that category. And like Glenn Milburn, he probably will do most of his damage on returns. Now, the second draft pick that I feel like reminds me of somebody, and I can't. I'm going to preface this with he only reminds me of this person in similar length and size, although he's quite a bit heavier, but he's not nearly as explosive. So, Ioma Iwarzurike, if I said that right, I hope I did. Sorry if I butchered his name. Sort of reminds me of one of the most underrated players in Broncos history, which was Trevor Pryce. Now, again, this is not saying that he is as dynamic as Trevor Pryce by any means. Trevor Pryce was an incredible interior pass rusher, and when he came out of college, he was already pretty well refined in that role. Very explosive. I think that he's one of my top, maybe two interior pass rushers on the Broncos of all time. It was an incredible force in the middle, coming from the defensive tackle position. He got kicked out to defensive end a couple years after he started his career, and then he left for Baltimore. Ended up with 91 sacks for his career, which was pretty good. 6'5", he's 290 pounds, so he was a little bit thinner than the player I'm talking about, but the length and the height and the ability to play throughout all of the defensive line positions really kind of reminds me of Trevor Pryce. Now, there's quite a few veteran players on the defensive line for the Broncos this year, so it's going to be hard for him to get some playing time. I think he may bump some veterans off of the team, but I really do think he has some promise, and if he can refine his pass rushing skills, I think he's going to be a force for the Broncos in the future, and he'll probably get a little bit of playing time this year. similar to Trevor Price. Trevor Price didn't get the start right away, even though he's a first-round draft choice. Kind of developed, and he ended up being a two-time Super Bowl winner with the Broncos. And if he'd have stayed with them, he probably would have had the record for most sacks in a season or in a career for the Broncos. Probably would have bested Simon Fletcher at some point, but he left and then kind of bounced around the league, and that was his career was over. So I know that comparison is a bit of a stretch because Trevor Price, like I said, was a much more refined pass rusher coming out of college. But he does his length. I mean, if you look at both of those players, you look at their, I guess their kind of style when they're out there playing on the field, they look very similar. So I'm hoping that he will develop into a pretty good pass rusher. I don't know if he will, but I'm hoping he will. But he's got tremendous length, tremendous size, and he should be a factor down the road for the Broncos. So again, don't forget next week, Carl Mecklenburg here on the show. Carl Mecklenburg's a legend of Mile High, absolute. In my opinion, should be a Hall of Famer. He's in the senior pool now, so it's a little bit tougher to get in, but he's going to be joining the show next week, so do not miss it. So I'm going to go back to what I said a little bit about the safeties for the Broncos. I never really got into talking about the luck that they've had in the safety position over the years. So everybody knows about Steve Atwater, Hall of Famer, incredible safety playing for the Broncos. And we also got to see John Lynch come over from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's a Hall of Fame player. He was kind of on his downside, but still incredible for the Broncos. So they were able to have him for a few years. It was an incredible player for them. Get into the Ring of Fame for the Broncos, which was quite amazing. And then also Brian Dawkins, another Hall of Famer, played a couple years for the Broncos. So everybody pretty much knows about these players. But there's a few that safeties that, and one of them started it all off in 1960, and that was Goose Gonsolin, an incredible safety that people don't even remember. But when he left the AFL, he played one more season in the NFL before he retired. He held the AFL record for interceptions, which was pretty amazing. Back then, many of the big interception players were in the NFL. So for him to do that in the AFL was a pretty big stat. I think he's someone that should get a second look for the Hall of Fame. And he has an incredible story that I'll probably talk about at some point in the Mile High Legends. So good morning, Albert. Good morning, Tom and Broncos country. Good morning to you, Albert. Really appreciate you hopping in here on the chat. And before I continue, I just wanted to give a shout out to other Mile High Huddle shows. There's some great ones out there. There's a lot of different perspectives. We have Mile High Huddle shows in the evening, just about every evening. We got the Huddle Up Podcast, Dove Valley Deep Divers, Mile High Insiders. Those are great shows. And then if you are a morning person and you want to see morning shows, we've got some great ones as well. Broncos for breakfast with Scott Kennedy and Nick Kendall, amazing show. And then Kim Becker just launched a new show as well. So check those out in the morning and the evening time. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, my handle is Thomas Hall NFL. Get some more NFL takes during the week. You don't have to wait until every Friday to hear them. So going back to the safeties, like I said, there's been some great ones. Dennis Smith is another one that comes to mind. Incredible hitter, one of the hardest hitters of all time. And he one time hit Buffalo's running back Thomas so hard that he said that half of his body went numb. So Dennis Smith's another great safety that came down the pike. And then one of my favorites that is very underrated is Tyrone Braxton. He was a cornerback, moved to safety. Incredible, helped them win 2 Super Bowls. Um, so I got a comment from Scott Thomas. What are some of the best nicknames in Broncos history? My favorite all time, regardless of team, was Marvin Shade Tree Jones. Yeah, Shade Tree's a good name. I mean, it's hard to top Tombstone, Rich Tombstone Jackson. I mean, that's for a defensive player. That is a heck of a name. He talks about. It's funny to see some of the old clips of him, people asking how he got that name, Tombstone, and he kind of alludes it a little bit, but it definitely insinuates that his role out there was to give offensive players their tombstone when they were laid to rest. So I think that that's a great nickname. One of my favorites, who was never an incredible player, but he was definitely help them, through the Super Bowl years and everything, was Dwayne Carswell, nicknamed House, and he was a big tight end. I liked that nickname, and I liked him. He was a good player, and towards the end of his career, when the Broncos had several tight ends on the team, was going to push him off. He actually put on weight to become an offensive tackle. I think he put on about 30 pounds, and he really earned his nickname House. We got FC Donnelly, Smiling Assassin. Yes, excellent name. Billy White Shoes Johnson, another great name from the DWI guys. I think that's those are great names. It's hard to beat Tombstone for sure, but I'm trying to think of some other really good ones. You know, Keith Tractor Trailer was a smooth sounding flow together, and Keith Trailer was not just a great name, but a pretty cool story. He came into the NFL as a inside linebacker at about 260 pounds, and kind of ate his way into a defensive tackle position. And he was a key cog in the Broncos Super Bowl championships in 97 and 98. That incredible interception run back for a touchdown during that season was amazing. I know that they often show his time with the Bears and him intercepting and running it back, but he never scored. So the Broncos one is much better. But and then you got Pot Roast, Terrence Knighton. That's a great nickname. So over the years, there's been some incredible nicknames, and the safety I was talking about, Goose Gonsolin. Goose was his nickname as well. Everybody knows him by that. He was Austin Gonsolin. I'm not really sure how he got the nickname Goose, but that's a fun nickname. But yeah, my favorite is Tombstone. I mean, it's you can't get a better nickname for a defensive player than that, especially one of his caliber. Because I mean, he at one point he was probably the best defensive lineman in the NFL. And in fact, the late great Dr. Z, Paul Zimmerman, actually just had him as a Hall of Famer. And even though he had a short career due to injuries, Tombstone was an amazing defender, and just wish he could have stuck around on the Broncos a little bit longer. It would have been fun to watch him continue his career. The DWI guys, what about the Belly? Yes, the Belly. That's a good one. That's he got that nickname because he had his shirt up, I think, in the Senior Bowl minors. That's a good nickname. I think he's gonna sounds like he's gonna put the Belly away this year, so we're not gonna see the Belly as much. But yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I'm drawing blanks on some of the other nicknames, but there's been some good ones in Denver Broncos history for sure. And yeah, for some reason I was thinking of another one and it drew a blank. So sorry about that. It's a little early here, so I still got to get my brain functioning correctly. But um, Not only has there been some great nicknames, there's been some great actual names coming through the Broncos. In fact, um, one of my favorites was Ma'a Tanuvasa. I mean, that's an incredible name just as it is. A cool name. But he was definitely another one of those underrated key cogs in Broncos Super Bowl back-to-back Super Bowl championships in the late 90s. So they had some some really cool names, not just nicknames coming through. So in fact, we should probably have people bring some of those cool names into the chat. Not next week, but maybe the week after, and we can go through and talk about some of those really neat names from the past that the Broncos had on their team. But yeah, Tanuvasa was incredible, incredible player from the rushing from the interior. And then kicked out to defensive end and was another force getting sacks in a part-time role. He didn't start most of the time. He came in off the bench, and I believe he had 8.5 sacks that 97 season from the interior. Searing Funsak, sorry if I butchered your name. Thank you, everybody. Thank you coming in chat from Facebook. Thank you for that. The DWI guys, Carl have a nickname. Yeah, he had a few nicknames actually. Carl Mecklenburg. The most notable was probably the albino rhino. And he also is called Snow Goose. I think back in the day I heard, and I've called him this plenty of times, Seven-Headed Monster. That one didn't really stick, but I mean, that was pretty fitting that he could attack from all 7 positions. So yeah, that's another one. He had several names, and he was, he deserved to have a cool nickname because he's just a legend. Werewolf was cool. I don't remember that name. I'm assuming it's DeMarcus Ware, but I don't remember him being called that. So that's a Brittany Rodriguez. Thank you for that. I was not aware of that nickname, so appreciate it. We've got Colby Collier coming in from Facebook Stars. Thank you very much. Appreciate you jumping into the chat. Ask any questions you want. We'll continue to talk, but I do like this nickname. It's fun to reminisce about the nickname. So again, thank you, Colby. You make the show work. Everybody, this is the reason why I do this show, is because of you guys out there listening. I can talk to myself all day long, so I'm glad that someone's listening to me, and that's why I do the show. It's a lot of fun. Sharon Grindstaff, how about John and his sons Samson, Watson, Johnson, and Jackson? I'm not really sure your question. I apologize. Are you talking? I'm not sure who you're referring to. I'm sorry. Thank you for the comment. Sorry, I can't answer that. I might need a little bit more information. I just kind of drawn a blank on who you're talking about. So apologize. And Albert Knoppers, so we could call Carl Hydra. Yeah, a little Marvel thrown in there. I think so. Something he definitely deserves something cool. In fact, I always thought back when I was younger watching him, there should be some sort of poster for him, like they had with John Elway as the gunslinger dressed up in Western garb, and that maybe have some sort of monster, 7-headed monster thing going on. Would have been pretty cool. But Carl's again one of my favorite players from when growing up, watching him in the 80s and 90s. Man, that I wish he would have got a Super Bowl. He went to 3. I really think that New York Giants Super Bowl, they really dropped the ball in the first half. They should have been up at least 24-7. And I think he would have got that Super Bowl. If he'd have done that, he'd have been in the Hall of Fame. So a great nickname, and too bad he didn't get a Super Bowl during his career. FC Donnelly, the Three Amigos. Yeah, the Three Amigos was a fun name. They didn't really live up to their hype, unfortunately. Ricky Nattiel really dropped off quickly after his rookie season. Had a tremendous rookie season and was really good in the in the playoff game in the 87 championship AFC championship game. But yeah, they kind of dropped off. I mean, Mark Jackson and Vance Johnson stuck around for quite a while. I like all three of them, but Mark Jackson was probably the best player out of all of them. Although Vance Johnson was incredibly more dynamic. But fun name for sure. Albert Napper's the no-fly zone. That's a more recent one. Yeah, people are trying to copy that. It's unfortunate because it's like there's only one no-fly zone, and to try and copy it, they should have like trademarked it or something. DWI guys, thank you very much coming in with the chat. I really appreciate the support. And says, "Oh wait, I just thought of this one, Stink," and he actually still uses the nickname. LOL. Yes, Stink. Mark Schlereth. His story is funny. The reason he's called Stink is due to kind of, I would say, stinky kind of stuff that he did. He even admits to the fact that he when he was playing, and if he had to urinate, he would just let it go, and he figured it was just like sweat. And it's interesting because the in 1997, when they were doing their run to that first Super Bowl win, on the same offensive line with him, who was nicknamed Stink and did all these kind of things that people would turn their nose up at. Brian Habib was on the line, and he was the almost exact opposite of Mark Schlereth. In fact, he was talking about how he would pretty much power wash his house almost every day. It was super clean, almost like, I don't know, like almost OCD. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's amazing to see how different some of those players on that orange hush offensive line, but how they meshed together on the field was just absolute perfection. Albert Knoppers coming in again. How many sheriffs were there? I know of only one, Peyton Manning. Yeah, there might be another sheriff, but Peyton Manning kind of rules that. I mean, what he did for the Broncos coming in late in his career, he really turned the franchise around. And there are a lot more Broncos fans now because of his presence. Great. He's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. So he earned that, even though he was kind of a shell of his former self when the Broncos won Super Bowl 50. He deserves credit for taking what was a franchise that, had some rough times and really turning them into a perennial winner for a few years. So yeah, he is the star. And then, of course, you can't forget the Duke, John Elway. I mean, he earned that name as well, the Duke. He was the Duke of Denver. I mean, John Elway is probably the most influential Denver Bronco of all time. So that's a nickname that should stick around, that he earned, and most people remember John Elway, the Duke. So, but still, I still think Tombstone's number one. So thank you for all of those strolling down memory lane with some of those nicknames. Those are great. I think that there's needs to be more of those type of nicknames. There's really not a lot of them that I see being kicked around anymore in the NFL. So maybe it takes a while for those to catch on. They have to have a cool nickname and be a great player. But you don't see it as much anymore. It seemed like it was something from the past. And even if you go to like Pro Football Reference, you can see their you can sometimes, if they have a popular nickname, they list them there. Albert Knoppers, I became a Bronco fan because of Peyton Manning. I never watched football until I saw a game between the Broncos and the Raiders in 2012. Yeah, again, I think Peyton Manning did a lot for this organization, just bringing in more fans. I mean, he had incredible popularity, and to be able to get him in the offseason was huge. I mean, I know he had some, there was a lot of questions around his neck and everything, but it is, he was incredible influence and brought in a lot of fans. And that's why we do this show, so that new fans that came in when Manning was bringing them in, we can reminisce about some of the old players and keep those old legends alive in our minds. So thank you very much. Okay, well, thank you. It was a great chat. Again, do not forget next week, Broncos legend Carl Mecklenburg will be on the show. We're going to really dive into his career. And now it's time for a different type of legend, the Mile High legend. There have been some miraculous events in NFL history, and they carry names that describe them to perfection. So the Hail Mary, the Holy Roller, the Immaculate Reception. These events are well known and have been immortalized in NFL films and get brought up time and again in broadcasts. And they've gone down in history as extraordinary events. But what if they had to be repeated? What if immediately after the event occurred, the ref stepped in and nullified those plays? Could they do it again? Could they execute it as exactly as it went? And that's highly doubtful. However, there is one rarely talked about event that should be considered the most miraculous ever, because it did have to be repeated. The refs did step in and nullify a great play only for the exact same result to happen on the very next play. And when I say exactly the same, I really mean it. It was lightning striking twice. The date was November 17th, 1985. The Denver Broncos squared off in historic Mile High Stadium against their AFC West rivals, then San Diego Chargers. The game was a hard-hitting and physical contest. Gerald Wilhite was knocked out on a vicious hit going over the middle, and both teams really battered each other. And it had all the excitement you could ask for. It was a back-and-forth battle. The game was either tied up or the lead changed 8 times, and the game went into overtime. And it also featured 2 future Hall of Fame quarterbacks, John Elway versus Dan Fouts, 2 gunslingers. And from the first play to the closing bell, it was pure excitement. And the opening kickoff was electric. The Chargers' Gary Anderson fielded the opening kick and took it 98 yards to the house. And then the Broncos roared back as Elway throws a frozen rope to Steve Watson for a touchdown to tie it up. And that's really how the game went. Back and forth, exciting, physical, lead changes galore. The game also featured 6 turnovers, 2 missed field goals, another electrifying return for a touchdown by Vance Johnson that was called back due to a penalty, and a Dennis Smith aerial attack as he dove over an offensive tackle to lay a hit on Fouts off of a blitz. And it also featured Dan Fouts' backwards duck waddle that he used as a drop back, which I can really only describe as a penguin awkwardly trying to backpedal into coverage. And the game was wild. It featured everything you could want as a spectator. And I really remember watching it when I was young. It was a great game. And of course, Elway, as he often did, worked his magic as he drove the Broncos down the field in the waning minutes of regulation to put Rich Karlis in position to tie up the game and send it to overtime. And in overtime is when the most miraculous event that nobody remembers occurred. The Chargers win the coin toss and drive down the field quickly. They keep the drive alive by converting a 4th down using the long extinct power I formation. And the Broncos defense finally stifles the Chargers at the offense at the 24-yard line. And in strolls their kicker to end the game. I mean, this is back when it was overtime, sudden death, first points win. So the Broncos, they need a miracle if they hope to win this game. And they are granted that miracle. The ball is snapped. Dennis Smith slices through and blocks the kick. Louis Wright picks it up, shakes off a tackler, and starts sprinting for the end zone. A sure game-winning touchdown. Except the whistles blow and the play is stopped. What would have been a game-winning field goal block and return for a touchdown is called back because the Broncos signaled for a timeout a split second before the snap of the ball. It is now a do-over. Broncos fans, including me as a youngster who witnessed a would-be miracle, are deflated. But Dennis Smith, as if he is Nostradamus, tells the team in the huddle that he's going to block the kick again. Sure enough, the ball is snapped. Smith jumps in front of the kick. It bounces into the waiting arms of Louis Wright. He sprints to the end zone, diving into the screaming, elated crowd of Broncos fans in the stands. And there's no whistles this time. The game is over. Broncos win on a miracle. Actually, back-to-back miracles to be exact. Now, blocking a field goal itself is not a miraculous event. But to do it on back-to-back plays in overtime to save the game and have the ball bounce into Louis Wright's arms twice with a free run to the end zone is. And it should have a catchy name just like the other events and be remembered in lore of NFL history instead of forgotten. And that is your Mile High legend. Before I say goodbye, I just want to say thank you to the DWI guys for jumping in with a late chat. I appreciate the support. Great show, Thomas. LOL, I remember that game. Take care, everyone. Take care as well from London, DWI guys. Really appreciate that. Have a great day, Broncos fans, and thank you for joining.